Welcome to the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Real inspiration for real innovators. If you're looking for innovation and leadership transformation, your journey starts now.
Welcome to the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Born. If you're enjoying these innovation insights, don't forget to hit subscribe so that you never miss a future episode. By following the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast, you'll stay at the forefront of trends, strategies, and real-world examples that guide today's innovators. And I'm so excited for you today. We have a very special treat. A friend of mine is joining us, Ryan Dunlap. He is a conflict strategist and a former hostage negotiator who brings lessons from the interrogation room into the boardroom. And he's going to help us today to make better, more informed decisions under pressure. He has over 20 years of experience with executive leadership, ministry, and crisis negotiation, and he has guided many leaders through high-stakes situations. He's the author of a brand new book that's out there called How to Untie a Balloon, a negotiator's guide to avoid popping under pressure. Welcome to the podcast, Ryan.
Thanks for having me, Natalie. This is cool.
I've been waiting to have you on this platform, so I'm really, really excited because you bring such a wealth of knowledge, and I really feel like today people are going to get so much value out of what you bring. So I want to start with your book and really understand this balloon metaphor and why this is a really good way to illustrate the pressure that builds in our lives.
Yeah, it's such a great question. And the hard part about answering this is it really is like a 20-year culmination of how it came to be. So I'll try to give you the cliff notes. I transitioned out of law enforcement into ministry, and I think for me, I encountered the most difficult season for myself.
Yeah.
Building relationships and having conversations as a hostage negotiator is 10 times easier than doing it as a pastor. And so I struggled those first 2 years I struggled, and I started asking myself these questions about why is it that I knew how to do all of these things? I had this technical gifting for communication, but there was still something missing that was making conversations hard for me. And I ended up getting sent to a class. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's called Sharpening Your Interpersonal Skills, SYIS.
I have heard of it.
Yeah. So here I am, this hostage negotiator, crisis interventionist, critical incident stress management facilitator, forensically trained interviewer, FBI trained interviewer, and I'm sitting in here learning how to sharpen my interpersonal skills. And so there was something that happened in that class where we took balloons, we wrote stressors on these balloons, and towards the end at some point, I don't remember all of the mechanics of it, but we ended up popping the balloons, and it was like this declarative moment. And that was a piece of where the balloon really kind of stuck in my mind, but it wasn't until some time later that I began coaching people and recognizing that these high-level leaders I was coaching exhibited a lot of the same mannerisms and behaviors that suspects did in the interrogation room.
Wow.
I would sit across the table with these high-level leaders, these really, really competent, capable people who, under pressure, did not show up at their best,
Okay.
right? And so in the interrogation room, suspects were afraid of being found out. And in the boardroom, leaders were afraid of being found out. We just call it imposter syndrome, right? In the interrogation room, suspects were afraid to admit that they were complicit in the downfall of themselves, that they had made bad decisions. And in the boardroom, leaders were also afraid to admit that they were complicit in the downfall of their own organizations. That anytime there was an organizational problem, it always pointed back at a leader, and many times it was them. Suspects were afraid to ask for help. Leaders are afraid to ask for help. The similarities go across the board. And so what I started recognizing was that the the factor that made the difference was pressure. Many times these suspects in the interrogation room weren't bad people. They had done bad things, and pressure changed the way they showed up. And the same thing was true for leaders. And I grabbed the balloon. I started this Instagram thing one day, and it was a whim. I think I went to a Rite Aid. I grabbed a pack of balloons, and I'm sitting in the car. This is back when I was doing my videos in a car. And I just kind of had this moment of a high pressure balloon. And I did this video called How to Untie a Balloon. And I blew this balloon up in the front seat of my car as big as I could. And I'm explaining to the camera that I said, this balloon, it's fully inflated. And if you squeeze it, it can't take much pressure.
Yeah.
Right. But if you untie this balloon, and I untied it, I let half the air out, and it was underinflated. And I began punching it and squeezing it, and I said, this same balloon with a little less internal pressure can withstand so much more external pressure.
Wow.
And And that was the analogy that stuck with me in all of my coaching. It's that, for us as people, it's so easy for us to get filled up with hot air. And
Mhm.
it's so hard to find safe ways to let it out without popping. And so that became the language of my coaching for a while. It was the first video I posted on social media that went viral, went over 1 million views.
Wow.
And when I started really kind of digging into my book in 2016, it took me 10 years to write it, but that was the central theme, was this pressure component, and using balloons as an illustration to demonstrate how we should untie ourselves.
Wow, that's so powerful, and to think that it resonated to the extent of 1 million views really speaks to why people need the content that you offer. I'd love to talk a little bit about your first framework. So
Mhm.
tell us what it is and then kind of walk us through how you use this to actually reshape a high pressure scenario.
Yeah, so in the book, I share this framework that I came up with over the years of coaching because of these high pressure dynamics that I would observe for the leaders I was coaching. And for context, the leaders I get to coach are people who are significantly more successful in life than I am. These are people who I think externally the world would look at and say they've got their stuff together. But what would typically happen is they would experience a high pressure moment, and their board or leadership team or someone in the organization would say, you probably need some professional accountability, right? And in talking with these folks, here's what I recognized. They had a tendency, we all do. This is, I think, a worldwide phenomenon with most people. We try to solve big problems all at once, right? We try to do everything all the time. And when you talk to people about big issues, complex conflict, or high pressure moments, what you find, if you can listen deeply, is that there are these five major buckets where their problems exist. And so there's a feeling bucket. They've got these really big, powerful feelings that are eroding their sense of peace. They've got these, so that's first, right? This is an acronym, first. They've got these feelings. Then they have their personal interests, their personal needs that need to be met. There's something that they want that they're not getting through this high pressure issue. There's a relationship dynamic between them and the other person or other parties involved, and they either want to improve that relationship, or maybe they want to separate themselves in that relationship. There is the situation that took place where people tend to hyperfixate on the cause, or the root issue that led to the conflict. And then there's the toll, what I call the pillow factor. We go to sleep at night thinking about it. We're lost peace. We don't eat. It's the relationship dynamic is caused strain on our health, whatever those things are. So in these high pressure conversations I was having with these leaders, these really, really accomplished people, I was hearing these feelings, these personal interests, these relationship dynamics, the situations that weren't reconciled, and these tolls it was having on them. And the goal of First Steps is to help people pick one thing to work on at a
Mm.
time. This idea that, how do you eat a whale, or how do you eat an elephant? I've heard it both ways, one bite at a time. It's that if I can make incremental improvements in my life,
Yeah.
then I will over time make a really big improvement. And so this works if we accept that iteration is the best way to lean into progress.
Mhm.
And for people who've been stuck in conflict for a very, very long time, years worth of conflict, I'll kind of throw a note out there for you. There's some research that shows that people hang on to grudges. I think it's on average 7 grudges for a period of 5 years at a time,
Oh my gosh.
sometimes extending up to 11 years at a time. So this is deep seated resentment, frustration, anger, whatever that is that we carry. People who are hanging on to those things for a very long period of time, when we deal with it one piece at a time, what I find is that they're able to make incremental steps over a period of weeks, maybe months, that really supersedes anything they've been able to do on their own up until that point. So it's been really, really fruitful and helpful for a lot of people who have put it into practice.
Well, and as I think about the fact that you said people hold on, say that stat again. People hold in how many grudges over what period of time?
Yeah, and I don't want to misquote it, because I don't. I think these are the numbers. I'm pretty confident. It's they we hold on to grudges, 7 grudges for a period of about 5 years on average, some extending up to 11 years.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, just I think about like the chronic illness, the chronic inflammation that people experience, poor sleep, high cortisol. Like there is an impact to the holding on of grudges, right? That sounds to me extremely exhausting just to hear you say it. And I believe that that's probably extremely true.
Yeah, it is so true. Here's why I think the coaching that I do resonates with people so much too. I live in this world that it's full of business coaches and a lot of people who are trying to start businesses, who are aspiring entrepreneurs, or maybe they're successful entrepreneurs. They go into business coaching looking for someone to give them a system or a framework or a process to scale their business or improve their business or something. And a lot of people who haven't started a business, they're looking for resources, they're looking for money or whatever. So there's a coach for these things. What I found though is that many businesses and many business leaders are not struggling because of a lack of strategy or a lack of resources only. It's not to say they don't have those
Mhm.
issues, but what I'm finding that most people aren't really talking about is that we don't know how to suffer well. We don't know how to lean into resilience. We are dealing with such deep intrapersonal conflict that we're not healthy enough to do hard things. And that's really what this whole platform that I've built is about. It's what I refer to as level 0. It's great if you've got ideas to build a business. It's great if you have a skill set, if you're technically proficient at a thing. But if you're not healthy, you're not going to be able to do this for any sustained period of time because it is hard
Yeah.
to do it. And so that's really what we're doing is we're deflating the balloon. We're removing internal pressures that we can control so that when the world presses itself against us, we don't pop under that
Mhm.
pressure, but we can either suffer well or we can sustain well. We've got resilience and the ability to come out the other end of whatever adversity we're facing well.
Yeah. I think that you talk a lot about how many people try to resolve this conflict before we fully decompress. And the lack of health and the grudges and whatever else you want to mention, it adds on to that pressure that we're constantly feeling on a daily basis. And if we're not dealing with the past and we're just continuing to move forward, it is that what you talked about where you just continue to blow up the balloon. I kind of call it in my work shooting stars. Like, you have people that rise to the top very quickly, and then 2,
Mm,
3 years, they're gone.
yeah.
Why? Because they couldn't handle the pressure of all these other interpersonal issues that press in around them, the politics of the organization, some of these things. Will you talk about how we can, in ourselves, recognize where we're at in this continuum and then actually begin to walk ourselves back or begin to find help to get that resilience we need in order to move forward?
Yeah, and to be completely transparent, it's a bit of a complex topic. It's so uniquely different from each of us as individuals when it comes to even having enough emotional intelligence and awareness to identify these things, what we call a pressure gauge. But one of the things that I think is really important is to audit our automatic responses to things. Because here's what I can tell you: pressure causes us to lean into relief instead of resolution.
Yeah.
And so if you're paying attention to how you're responding to pressure and you're asking yourself, is what I'm doing right now solving a problem or is it making me feel better?
Mhm.
Right? Because that's typically what happens when the balloon has gotten so big, we're just looking for a way to release the pressure. And so how does that come out? We yell, we scream, we cuss, we argue, we
Mhm.
isolate, we avoid, we push away, we blame, we point fingers, we don't extend a hand. And
Mhm.
we become more self-centered, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but we become so focused on self from a self-preservation standpoint that externally we become deficient in
Yeah.
some way. So I think one of the first things that we can do is we can evaluate the fruit of our effort
Mhm.
and really ask ourselves, like, what have I been up to here recently? And that can be an indication or at least a clue that we're responding to pressure that might have exceeded our ability to cope.
Mhm.
And I think the other side of this is making sure that we sit with ourselves before pressure has had its chance to dance with our identity
Mm.
so that we understand what our baseline is. There's this term called a hedonic treadmill that, it's our baseline, it's our norm. And many of us have sat with high pressure for so long that we think that is normal
Wow.
and we don't know how to remove ourselves from high pressure states. And so when you know your baseline, you always have something to check against, right? So we sit with ourselves and we say, who am I when I'm calm? Who am I when I'm healthy? Who am I when I'm not in this high pressure state? And so as we're feeling pressure, or maybe if we're not even paying attention to it, I'll tell you that was a big story
Mhm.
for me. Was I was under pressure, didn't know it. I could still look back and be honest with myself and say, if I wasn't under pressure, I'd be sleeping better.
Yeah.
My relationship with my wife would be better. I wouldn't be on pins and needles with my kids. I'd be looking forward to going into work. I wouldn't pull into the parking lot and sit for 30 minutes rocking myself,
Mhm.
trying to get the
Right.
motivation to walk in the front door, right? So I think there are these signs that we can pay attention to because it manifests in each of us differently. And then
Mhm.
if we learn to observe ourselves, and as I say, we get honest with ourselves about ourselves, then I think it's super clear for most people. Oh, you're under pressure.
Yeah.
What we decide to do about that is completely different, right? But I think sitting with ourselves and understanding who we are and our non-pressure state gives us a better idea of how to identify when we're not at our baseline.
Yeah, this is so good. And I feel like what your book does is it gives a lot of frameworks so that people can not just understand that, it's enough to say, hey, yep, okay, you got me. I'm under pressure. But you also provide some antidotes for what to do. And I think that that part is just as important in understanding your baseline. And I would agree with you. I think that as people who've been high level leaders, like when I read your bio, Ryan, you've been doing your thing for 20 plus years. So have I. Sometimes pressure can just become the norm. And so you may even have to go back 20 something years to figure out what your baseline is because
Yeah.
you've never known a day where you weren't under some type of pressure,
Hmm.
especially when you start leading people, leading organizations, leading initiatives. The pressure just constantly feels
Yeah.
to be there, right? So what are some frameworks or some ways that you would say that we could, let's say that everyone listening to this, and I believe it's probably everyone is like, yep, he's got my number. What are some things that we could do immediately, let's say in the next 2 weeks, to try to figure out how to get a baseline and to try to figure out how to start moving towards that decompression so that we can be a more effective leader? Because when your brain is hijacked, you're not working with the executive function, right? The frontal cortex of your brain. You're working in a state of fight or flight, and no one is effective in a state of fight or flight.
Yeah, it's so good. So, a couple of things. One, I think we have to understand that we can't effectively do what you're talking about when we're in a dysregulated or an emotional state because what you're talking about requires us to operate from our prefrontal cortex, and pressure puts us in this space where we're primarily operating out of our limbic system. So this is fight or flight, freeze or fawn. And so the first thing we have to do is recognize that you can't solve problems in a dysregulated state. Okay. So what do you do to calm down and relax? And so one of the things I think is really great, mindfulness is kind of goes back to like sitting with yourself and learning yourself. I provide this acronym called STOP, space, time, and opportunity. And giving yourself space from your issues, some time to decompress, and an opportunity to reframe your approach towards that is step one,
Mhm.
right? Because the way a problem seems when you're standing right next to it is very different than when you get some time and distance away from it. So you can get greater context for it. And then you have to, this is a qualitative process, not a quantitative process. And I like that you said, hey, there's a lot of frameworks in the book. Well, that's because there is no one way. I tell people
Mhm.
all the time, there's no script for this. Okay. And
Mhm.
so there's not a thing that you can say or a thing that you can do. There are options
Yeah.
and you have to try them all to see what best works for you. But one of the questions I really like to sit with people, we say, hey, this is a 2-week process. First is we're going to look back before we look forward, and we're going to say, who was I before the world hurt me? Who was I before this pressure did a number on me?
Mm.
And that's the first thing I had to do when I sat with myself. I found myself in a ministry moment, like, oh my gosh, I was kind of like, Moses and the Israelites. I wanted to go back to what I knew because this new thing was so uncomfortable, and I was wrestling with God on this thing. And this was kind of like he didn't ask it that way, but it's kind of where I've gotten it to today. It's like, man, who were you before the world hurt you?
Oh,
Who were you before you were just a product of your conditioning? And I didn't know that version of me,
wow.
you know? And so that helped me get clear on who I was. And then, Dr. Ben Hardy, someone I've been listening to a lot here recently, he says that your present defines your past and your future defines your present. And so it's this idea that I can look back and I can either see myself as a victim or as a victor. And
Yeah.
depending on how I describe my past today gives credibility to that past. Also, depending on how I see my future, it defines exactly what steps I start taking today.
Wow.
So if I start looking ahead and I say, "Hey, I'm an overcomer. I'm a dedicated husband. I'm a committed father. I am a a dedicated believer who doesn't just believe in the word, but walks this thing out, right? These are things that are central to me. Then I have to start making decisions that put me in position to do exactly that. Right. And so it's almost like a vision casting retreat thing. I'm going to kind of spill some beans here. I saw something that you and Aaron did online. I was like, I love that. Right. You go away and just get like, what's the story?
Yeah.
Maybe not just what has the story been, but what will the story be? And then what are the things that are happening in this chapter that I don't want to bring with me into the future chapters? And that's really where in the next 2 weeks, space, time, and an opportunity to separate ourselves from our problems, get really, really clear on who I was before this happened and who I hope to be on the other side of this.
Okay.
And we can start deprogramming ourselves and we can start defining what are the feelings I'm feeling that aren't in alignment with who I want to be? And what are the feelings I want to feel that maybe I haven't felt in a long time?
Wow.
What are my personal needs that need to get met that haven't been met in a really, really long time that I've been trying to have met in an unhealthy way? Right? What are the quality of my relationships? And am I happy with the quality of these relationships? Right? What are the situations I keep finding myself in that is taking me away from the situations I want to be in?
Mhm.
And how has this impacted my greatness? How has this impacted my trajectory? How has this impacted not just my life, but the people around me? What's the toll? What's the cost been for this? It's the question process, right? Because as coaches, I tell people all the time, my job is not to give you answers, just to ask better questions,
Mhm.
right? And everything about coaching is self-determination. So if I can help you ask a better question, I can help you design your future better.
Wow.
And that's really what we're doing.
Well, I want to pause here and say that many leaders I talk to don't feel that they can get off the hamster wheel.
Mhm.
They just feel that, life, they're just going to take it as it comes and they're just going to take it as it's handed to them. And unfortunately, that does not create an intentional, long term, positive result. And what I hear you saying is, and I'm going to say it a little stronger because these are big conversations I've been having with leaders over the last 3, 4 months, is the idea of taking a sabbatical,
Mhm.
time and pressure away from the thing that you've always done, the hamster wheel you've always run on. Like I've talked to people who are like, oh, I've worked for 20 years and I've never taken more than a week off of work at one time. And it's really in week 2 that all the cortisol levels start to drop and you start to realize, like, okay, I can actually think clearly now. I'm not just caught up in the responding to email, responding to text, constant response. And so what we don't realize is we've created a lifestyle that we're not even able to sustain, but we don't even
Mm.
realize it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, no, super good. And I had a conversation with a mentor of mine one time because this was very much my mindset, especially when I came into ministry. I didn't know what a sabbatical was. That was language that was foreign to me. It was the first time I heard it. And I remember we were sitting in a circle as a bunch of pastors sitting at a circle. We're having this conversation. It was an icebreaker question, like, how do you like to relax? And so everybody's kind of going around this thing. And it gets to me, and I remember saying it almost matter of factly, but almost proudly, like, "Yeah, I don't relax. I don't have time to relax." And I remember in that moment, I felt so alone because, like, the first thing they tried to do was pray it off of me. They're they're like, "Oh, no, like, we gotta pray for you." And I was like, "No, I feel fine." And I wasn't fine,
Yeah.
right? So part of this was this discovery, this realization, right, that I had been lying to myself, that if I stop working, something bad is going to happen. And here's the reality. That might be true, but also, if you don't stop working, something bad is gonna happen anyway.
Mhm.
And you have to choose, do you want the business to suffer or do you want your family to suffer? We have a mutual friend who sat me down one day and he says, you know, 2 things are gonna happen. Either you're gonna sit yourself down or life is gonna sit you down, and you don't want life to sit you down.
Wow.
And that was Montel, you
Yeah.
know, and it was great when he said it because I was in this place where I was getting ready to jump back in head first to what I'd always known. I'd had a job offer to join the FBI, and I was about to go to Quantico and leave my wife and 3 kids behind and be gone for several months and jump right back into this busy lifestyle. And I was wrestling with it, and he was just like, "Yeah, it sounds like that's not what you wanna do. It sounds like you know better, but all you know is busyness," you
Yeah.
know? So, yeah, are there real repercussions about sitting down and stopping moving? Yeah, that's the problem I have in my business right now. right? If I don't show up to work right now in its current state, somebody's needs aren't getting met. I'm probably not getting paid because I haven't yet built out the business in such a way where it is self-sustaining. So in many ways, I am self-employed, not yet an entrepreneur, right? As people would say. But here's what I'll tell you. What I think a lot of leaders don't understand is the catalyst effect that rest has on your ability to be productive. And so what happens is we accept 50% of our best performance all the time rather than these intentional sprints of 100% of well performance.
Wow.
And so, yeah, take a seat, get healthy, take some time to rest because you're going to be 10 times more productive, rested, and healthy than you are just showing up and going through the motions. And I think that's something that maybe we don't really learn till we've done it.
Mhm.
But it's been so true. You can do more in 2 days with rest than you can in 5 days with no rest,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. This is so good. And I know that almost every leader out there that's listening needs to hear what you have to say. Can you tell people not only how to find and follow you, but also how to get a hold of your book? Because they need to listen to it. They need to read it. They need to apply it.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the cool things about what I get to do is we're pretty prominent on social media these days. And so anyone who wants to hear a daily conflict strategy or a daily tip can find us on TikTok or Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook. We post 90-second conflict strategy videos there every single day, or at least we try to do it every day. And, the book is available wherever books are sold. So if you're an Amazon person, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Target, if it's sold somewhere on one of those online retailers, you can find it. And it's been a pretty cool journey. And, we're looking at launching an academy, an online academy, and it'll be a place for people who are saying, "Hey, I need more than just the frameworks. Like I need someone to help walk me through it." It's going to be something that I'm really excited about launching here soon. So people can join me in this process of improving themselves and these three areas of life that I think are really important: our private life, our personal life, and our professional life. And so it'll be pretty cool when we can get this done and walk alongside people in a group community that's dedicated towards getting the same results in life.
Well, I love it. It's Ryan Dunlap, Conflictish. Am I saying that right? Conflictish?
Yeah, yeah. I guess I should have said where to find us on social
Yeah.
media, right? So clearly, I don't do sales very well. So no, it's conflict. Our handle is conflictish everywhere. Conflict ISH, and yeah, you can find us under that moniker, or find myself on LinkedIn, Ryan Dunlap.
Awesome. Man, I'm just gonna say it one more time. People need to follow you. They need to get your book. Just the content that you provide, not only online, but also through the actual book. People just need to go get it and engage with you. They will find that they're solving their own problems a little bit better each time they listen to one of your videos. So thank you so much for joining us today. It was awesome to have you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Remember, don't just get out of the box, break the box and set it on fire. Let's go transform something.
Thank you for joining us for the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our show on iTunes. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Innovation Meets Leadership, and visit our site at innovationmeetsleadership.com for more innovation resources.
Hey, my new book is out, Set It on Fire, The Art of Innovation. Click on the link to learn more. And don't just get out of the box, break the box and set it on fire. Let's go transform something.